Hello class and welcome to FNAF-ology 101. My name is Professor Petal. Please open your textbooks to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, or FFPS. FFPS is the sixth game in the FNAF franchise, released in 2017. The game was originally portrayed as a little pizzeria tycoon simulator type game before it was released, hence the name. Something light and small, taking a break from the previous game's darker themes. Kinda like FNAF World was supposed to be. Fun, right? Wrong. You get about 2 minutes into this game before it quickly becomes apparent that this silly little tycoon simulator is a fully fledged FNAF game, packed with lore, jump scares, multiple gameplay styles, and several different endings. There's endless content to cover regarding FFPS. There are some incredibly important lore drops throughout the game that I'd love to go over. Henry's introduction, now recontextualized by Secret of the Mimic. Why Afton's door is wooden and the rest aren't. Lefty's shockingly discounted price, those awful Juice Clown brothers, and so much more. So today, instead of doing any of that, we're going to cover one of the least important aspects of the game, the lawsuits. In FFPS, the items you purchase for your pizzeria can come with a liability risk. Large items in poor condition, usually discounted, come with the possibility of something undesirable hiding inside. This allows animatronics that normally politely wait outside your pizzeria to just waltz right in and harass you. Allegedly. You can't prove anything, and even if you could, Fazbear Entertainment is not at fault. Speaking of fault, these high liability items increase your chances of getting sued. You can give up and settle the lawsuit for a higher price, or hire a shady lawyer for less money to fight back against these baseless accusations. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. If you don't have enough money to fight or settle a claim, you get the bankruptcy ending.
You gave it your best shot. You went all in. You put all your eggs into one basket and did the unthinkable. You ran out of cash. While we encourage entrepreneurs to follow their dreams, we also recognize a lost cause when we see one. There are no do-overs, and we trust that you know your way out. But before you go, take this certificate of bankruptcy. Now do everyone a favor and get lost.
The lawsuit gameplay segment and the lawsuits themselves are just there for comedic purposes. It's fun, it's silly, the music is a bop, Helpy is cute, Fazbear Entertainment sucks, and that's about it. Like I said earlier, there's zero lore to be found here. Seriously, there's no twist ending to this video where I reveal a tiny detail in these lawsuits that solves the entire franchise forever. But they're pretty funny, and they provide some interesting speculation fodder. And a good professor is nothing if not thorough, so let's go over them together anyway. Alright, okay. I know I said there's no lore here, but I'm going to immediately retract that statement with the literal first sentence of each of these lawsuits. And they all start like this. In the District Court of Utah, 5th Judicial District, Washington County. Right off the bat, we get confirmation of the location of FFPS, Washington County, Utah. In the Silver Eyes, FNAF's general story is confirmed to take place in Hurricane, Utah, but we never had real confirmation of any location within the games. Until now. Yep, Hurricane, Utah is within Washington County, Utah. This isn't really a new reveal, and it doesn't have a lot of bearing on the story itself, but it was a pretty significant lore drop at the time. It's always nice to have confirmation of book elements that are assumed to be transferred to the games, like this. Moving on, the lawsuits all continue as such. Parents Union against unsafe atrocities and mechanical abominations. Plaintiff versus Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated. Defendant. Plaintiff Parents Union against unsafe atrocities and mechanical abominations, PUAUAAMA, hereby complains against Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated and seeks relief as follows. The ever-reputable Pua'uama is the accuser in all of these suits. They really have it out for Fazbear Entertainment. They also seem to be fighting fire with fire because, as we'll see later, some of their claims are just about as sketchy/ridiculous as the type of shenanigans Fazbear Entertainment is known for. The lawsuits all continue with varying case numbers and judge names. Here's a list of the case numbers. Notably, One of the case numbers and the judge associated with them appear on 2 different lawsuits. Otherwise, I couldn't find anything important about them. I tried running them through some number decoders, but then I got Foxy Grid flashbacks and had to stop. But hey, let me know if you discover a secret code in here somewhere. Next up, the honorable judges. Judge Steve Kaufman, Judge Sam Walton, Judge Monterey Soul, Judge Carrie Bishop, Judge Stevenson, Judge Guy, Judge Kublock, Judge Furlong, Judge Hine. The judges' names, too, seem to be random. Some have full names, some don't. Some have hyphenated names. Some are notable figures, others are just a guy. Kublock is the judge who appears twice with the same case number across 2 lawsuits. I'll note which ones those are when we get to them. So far, nothing of note from the case numbers and judges' names. However, I did notice something odd about the numbering of the lawsuit paragraphs/sentences. Most of them start at 1, but there are 2 that start at 6 and 11, respectively. They seem to be part of a set, so there should be another case that numbers 1 through 5 to complete it. There's one case that matches that requirement and has a unique introduction that none of the other cases have, making it a good candidate. Okay, but why? Are these 3 all one case? Is it all the same child? If so, he's rivaling Cece in the worst day at Freddy's competition. None of these are the duplicated judge/number cases either. It's hard to theorize any further without discussing the content of the lawsuits. I want to have the chance to analyze each one individually first, so we'll circle back to how these 3 connect at the end of the video. Just remember it for later. For now, let's get into the lawsuits themselves. A child suffered debilitating injuries because of the conduct exhibited by defendant Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated. His head was bitten by an animatronic. Though his frontal lobe remained connected to his head, doctors aren't sure how long it will stay that way. The trauma from the event may cause it to fall off yet. Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated recklessly endangered this young man and ultimately caused him extreme and grievous harm through its failure to comply with applicable state statutes and regulations regarding the running of an entertainment attraction facility. But for such negligence per se on the part of Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated, he would not have suffered such cruel and unusual harm. Faz history repeats itself. I will note that the plaintiff tends to exaggerate the incidents and injuries presented in most of these lawsuits. Usually there's something within the lawsuit itself to clue us into the joke. A girl was lobotomized, we can tell because all she wants to do is watch TV. A child was irreversibly maimed and traumatized because they stubbed their toe, etc., etc. It's funny, but this one doesn't have anything that lessens the seriousness of the injury described. Even though his frontal lobe remains connected, I think an animatronic bite to the head would still seriously injure and/or traumatize a child. Yeah, Fazbear Entertainment deserves to get sued for this one. As for the lobeless elephant in the room, yes, this is obviously a very direct reference to the bites of 83 and 87. But why? We're clearly meant to make some sort of connection here, so let's do as the title of this video says and overanalyze it. Reason 1. It's just a fun reference. This one sucks. You should all know by now how I feel about describing things away as meaningless references. Regardless, I do think this is a likely answer, but I still hate it. Reason 2. To show us that both of the previous bites were also caused by failure to comply with state regulations. Or in other words, to show us for the billionth time that Fazbear Entertainment has always been a bit sketchy. But seeing as how Mike/the player are the ones making the decisions within this specific pizzeria, what happens here doesn't have much bearing on Fazbear Entertainment's past. Mike was a kid during the bite of 83. I don't think he had much to say on their compliance with safety regulations at the time. But now that I mention Mike... Reason 3. Mike is being haunted by his past, and every time he steps foot in a Freddy's, history repeats itself. What if Mike was responsible for the bite of 83, 87, and now this new FFPS bite? This one requires Mike to be Fritz Smith, the FNAF 2 guard on the 7th night, for him to be present for the bite of 87. This is a debated topic. This one also sort of blends into general haunting themes or Cece's influence, which we'll get into in a second. The difference is that this one is Mike-centric. Be it agony, memories, vibes, or whatever, I like the idea that despite his every attempt to make things right, to make up for past misdeeds, Mike just brings more death with him everywhere he goes. Though it makes for a fun narrative, it doesn't really have anything else going for it. Additionally, there would need to be a bite in the FNAF 1 location and wherever else Mike went on his Faz tour of all the Freddys. You could argue Ralph, phone guy, could suffice as the victim du jour, but now we're jumping through hoops to explain a theory that is kind of pointless anyway. Let's move on from this one. Reason 4. It's giving us insight into Cece's experience. The victim in this incident kept his lobe, but there is apparently potential for it to fall off later. Perhaps we should take away from this the idea that Cece's lobe fell off later too. Maybe that's what flatlines him. Then again, the human body can famously live without a frontal lobe. So even if it was true and Cece lost his lobe later, it, again, wouldn't really change anything. I said it before, but I'm going to pause and reiterate here. These lawsuits really don't have any bearing on the lore. This video is mostly just fun speculation that won't solve or tell us anything new or concrete. Nevertheless, I do hope you enjoy journeying into this lawsuit-induced overanalysis nightmare with me. Let's continue. Reason 5. It's giving us insight into animatronics' general tendencies to bite. Since there are so many animatronics available in FFPS, we can't really use this to try to narrow down the culprit of the bite of 87, as much as I'd like to. If this lawsuit only appeared after purchasing a certain animatronic or something, that'd be cool. I don't think it does, though. So alternatively, we can take the opposite of the insight that a specific animatronic did this bite, and instead infer that any and all animatronics are equally likely to enjoy a lobe from time to time. I hear they're a delicacy. Reason 6. It's another example of certain locations or events themselves being haunted or influenced by something supernatural. We're entering shatter/memory victim and other such theories territory here. Basically the idea that Cece or someone else influences the real world with their memories or agony or sheer power of will. Cece can't escape the memory of his bite, so it keeps happening again and again because his spirit is connected to Freddy's and is somehow powerful enough to do so. There's already plenty of evidence for these types of theories, but this could be another good example of Cece's specific history repeating itself. Phew, that's all I have to say about this one. Some theory supporting evidence and fun insights into the world of Freddy's, and that's about it. I won't have this much to say about the other lawsuits, I just wanted to start off with something fun. Let's move on. A young boy suffered debilitating injuries because of the conduct exhibited by defendant Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated. He fell from a ride, stood up, and fell down again. It took the staff over 30 minutes to care. The lack of responsiveness on the part of the staff has caused him to become secluded in his home, afraid to go out in public again, out of fear of being ignored. Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated recklessly endangered this young man, and ultimately caused him extreme and grievous harm, through its failure to comply with applicable state statutes and regulations regarding the running of an entertainment attraction facility. But for such negligence per se on the part of Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated, he would not have suffered such cruel and unusual harm. Like I said earlier, we can now see how Puamuma tends to exaggerate the outcomes of these incidents. After seeing this very non-injurious case being described with the same gravity of the previous one, perhaps the aforementioned bite didn't really cause any harm at all. There's no way for us to know. What sticks out to me in this one is the mentioning of staff members. How many other employees were at FFPS? Was it just Mike? Within the game, he's busy in the weird basement area ordering supplies while the pizzeria is in operation. Is that why it took so long for staff to notice this poor traumatized child? Because the one employee here was busy fighting for his life against his dysfunctional animatronic family? Or maybe Henry was out on the floor, serving up pizzas and ignoring endangered children, like the good old days. Another, perhaps more reasonable option is that there were more employees than just Mike. Henry was the one who created the original job listing. We have no idea if there were more frontline staff he hired for day-to-day pizza operations while Mike runs the business side. Let's keep an eye out and see if multiple staff members are mentioned in any of the following lawsuits. A young boy suffered debilitating external and internal injuries because of the conduct exhibited by defendant Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated. He broke 100 bones and suffered severe internal bleeding while patronizing Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated. Although he didn't notice his broken bones until he got home, his parents believe Fazbear Entertainment should still answer for his injuries. Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated recklessly endangered this young man and ultimately caused him extreme and grievous harm through its failures to comply with applicable state statutes and regulations regarding the running of an entertainment attraction facility. But for such negligence per se on the part of Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated, he would not have suffered such cruel and unusual harm. Bone count varies depending on age. Babies can be born with anywhere from 275 to 300 bones, which fuse together to 206 by adulthood. Let's take an average and say that this kid has 250 bones. Breaking 100 bones would be 40% of his bones. 40% of all of his bones. That's a lot of bones. That's almost half his bones. And he didn't notice till he got home? Clearly, Puamuama is either just straight up lying or this child is invincible. Or a horrific injury happened somewhere else and the parents just want to blame Fazbear Entertainment for insurance reasons. Upon researching more about bones, I've learned that there are 27 in each hand and 26 in each foot. So technically, he could break 100 bones and not, die instantly. I still think he'd notice it though. Also, whatever list I'm now on for searching how many bones can a child break before dying, please know it was in the name of research. So, what's the final verdict? Who knows? All answers are equally likely. I'd say a kid suffered some medium injuries at the pizzeria, and Puamuama is really pushing the boundary of what constitutes a broken bone. I think our biggest takeaway from this lawsuit should be that Puamuama's claims cannot be trusted to be 100% truthful. But we already knew that. A young boy suffered severe mental trauma because of defendant Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated's cold-hearted indifference to the health and well-being of the human population. While attempting to enjoy a day and a frolic at a Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated establishment, he became trapped and encased in a small confined area after the ground gave way beneath him. Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated's lack of maintenance upkeep led to the unstable ground upon which he walked and fell upon. He was trapped in a cold, wet, damp, and dark enclosed space for nearly 13 hours. Pizza and party favors had to be lowered down to him. Based on this experience, he has developed a debilitating fear of the dark and anchovies. Oddly, this is one of two lawsuits that end differently than the rest. I'll point out the other one later, but most of the lawsuits end with something along the lines of, if not for Fazbear's negligent behavior, this could have been avoided. But this and the other one end abruptly without any kind of closing statement. Weird. I don't know if this has any legal bearing or if its only purpose is to add to the comedic flow. I'm a professor, not a lawyer. The real thing to note in this complaint is the ground giving way beneath the kid. After the FFPS building burns down at the end of the game, it later somehow ends up underground. The mega pizza place is then built haphazardly on top of it, despite the apparent safety risks. Construction update. Every day there's a new problem. We pour a new section of track, and as soon as it dries, we start to see cracks. I'm worried we're building over a sinkhole here. Before construction was approved, there was a site evaluation, right? Right, we know. The Pizzaplex sinkhole isn't a secret. It's interesting, though, to see that the FFPS building had the same sinking problems as the Pizzaplex, even back then. Enough to the point of the ground literally giving way under people's feet. Does the sinking ground in FFPS mean there's a building underneath it too, same as the Pizzaplex? It's possible. Secret of the Mimic presented us with plenty of potential new layers to add to this disaster of architectural engineering. In the end, the idea that there's something built beneath FFPS isn't new, but this lawsuit could be a nice piece of evidence towards those type of theories. A young boy was hospitalized for 10 months due to defendant Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated's negligent preparation and handling of foodstuffs. He contracted multiple parasites from food and beverages prepared at a Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated business. The parasites caused him to suffer explosive dysentery, including painful acute stomach cramps and terrible nausea. Such horrible circumstances could have been avoided if Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated simply followed approved standards of care for the handling of foodstuffs. But for Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated's cruel indifference to human safety and health, he would not have suffered such unnecessary harm and damage. Gross. I won't go into any detail on the specifics here, but it's notable that dysentery can be fatal, especially for children. However, even the most serious case of food poisoning doesn't warrant a 10-month hospital stay. Once again, Mama is just straight up lying or severely overreacting to a minor incident. Anyways, this confirms we are serving food and drink at this establishment, unless this kid was eating food of unknown non-Fazbear origin. That might explain the horrors he endured. But more likely, FFPS served food. I mean, yeah, I should hope the pizzeria has pizza. But from that information, we can infer that there must be a kitchen somewhere in the building that we don't see. What else is there that we don't see within the game? Let's take stock of what we do know. There's the pizzeria main floor, the area where we order our new supplies, the labyrinth, the room where we interview animatronics, and wherever Henry is hiding during this whole thing. We also know there's a kitchen somewhere, and if this building was repurposed from any previous FNAF locations, there should be a safe room as well, and somewhere to store animatronics and items not currently in use. This place is getting pretty big, huh? Considering the quickly increasing scale of the building, this shack thing we see in the completionist ending is pretty inaccurate. It seems way too small given everything we just covered as being part of the FFPS building. Another problem lies in the existence of the alleyway, as mentioned by Henry in the animatronics interview segment.
There is another aspect to your end-of-day routine, and that is inspecting and salvaging any animatronics found in the alley outside the back door.
So we know that there's another building nearby. That's what an alleyway is. It's a space between two buildings. So the FFPS building has to have another building next to it, at least on one side. It may be that all the rooms and areas I mentioned before are split into multiple buildings, so the buildings that line the alleyway are both part of the FFPS location. Either way, the completionist ending depiction is still wrong. I suppose this doubles down on the idea that minigames/cutscenes shouldn't be taken literally. Hey, wait, put those pitchforks down! A young girl was utterly and horribly disfigured by the reckless endangerment exhibited by defendant Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated. While patronizing Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated's wholly owned and operated establishment, her index finger was broken due to the establishment's failure to install necessary and approved safety apparatuses. The child has suffered pain and suffering from her inability to ever play the Itsy Bitsy Spider again. But for the callous indifference Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated has shown to safety standards, her digits would all be intact and the spider could go up the spout again. This is one of the lawsuits that share a judge and case number. Otherwise, I don't have much to say here. Poor kid. Poor spider. A young boy suffered a concussion as the result of the reckless behavior exhibited by defendant Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated. He complained and whined for several long hours after patronizing an establishment owned and operated by Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated. An attraction struck him in the head at Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated's establishment. After crying inconsolably for several minutes, he left and took his pizza. He later said he was too upset to eat it. He threw it away. What a waste. This is the second of the lawsuits that end abruptly without the typical closing statement lamenting Fazbear's failure to comply with a single legal standard regarding restaurant management. Someone ought to fire the guy running this place. Or setting him on fire works too, I guess. If only there was some way to reduce the pizza waste from these trash-happy children. Hey, wait, I've got an idea. Customer complaint. The pizza we ordered was weird. Some pieces were different sizes or didn't fit together. One slice even had different toppings. Did you recycle old pizza from the trash? I am never coming back here unless I'm given some sort of major discount. Angry mom. Well, there's just no pleasing you people, is there? A young girl suffered a twisted ankle caused by defendant Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated's grossly negligent and willful acts. Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated willfully failed to comply with minimal regulatory standards to ensure her safety and its other patrons. Because of Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated's complete and utter failure to follow the law, she was irreversibly crippled on a Saturday evening in full view of her mother, father, siblings, and other patrons, and is not expected to recover for at least 2 weeks. Her family suffered severe mental trauma from the sight of their loved one on the ground complaining. Her injury was completely avoidable, but for Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated's contumacious conduct in failing to observe regulatory standards. Did that say Saturday evening? This is the only lawsuit that mentions a day of the week, so it stands out as an exception. And what a weird exception to make. Saturday is the day where the game ends. The big party on Saturday that you want to make sure every animatronic is at so Henry can deep fry them all. The game starts on a Monday, based on both the amount of days between the beginning of the game and the party, and also the giant text in the catalog that says the day of the week. Right. Either way, we've got a problem. Why would Pumamuma lie about the day of the week of an accident? I cannot fathom a reason. Even if it happened on Saturday before the fire, there's no way Pumamu could have filed a lawsuit fast enough to address a day of incident. Also, you can get this lawsuit before Saturday anyway. So that only leaves us with one option. The pizzeria was in operation before Mike showed up.
Congratulations on completing the week. Unfortunately, you did not meet your special obligations under paragraph 4. Your employment is terminated. We'll mail you your things. End tape.
This tape plays if you get the bad ending, which is achieved by not salvaging any animatronics, and you get fired. Given that you threw all the animatronics away, they still need to be gathered. Henry would likely just hire another employee and restart the whole thing. I mean, he does say there's something outside that has been trying to get in for months. Any sane person would throw out the animatronics immediately. And imagine salvaging one anyway because you're a good employee, only for it to murderously show up in the vents. You'd either stop salvaging them or quit entirely. If you even survive, that is. There's a lot going against Henry here. Man, it's a good thing this new guy doesn't seem to have an ounce of self-preservation. Hey, wait a minute, doesn't he look familiar? Circling back to our discussion of staffing, yes, it seems that there are multiple staff members employed. If the pizzeria is continually in operation while Henry waits for the right someone to fulfill their special obligations, then it makes sense that there's more than one person working there. Otherwise, the place would be opening and closing every week or so. I bet Henry runs the pizzeria business side between victims, and there's a regular daytime shift crew who stay on regardless, until the place burns down, that is. But all this raises another question. Why didn't Henry just do it himself? No, really. Why does he need to employ someone to do his dirty work for him? Was he worried the animatronics would recognize him and suspect his plan? They don't suspect anything when they see Mike. Maybe he's giving them too much credit. Or maybe he couldn't afford to put himself in danger because if he dies, there will be no one left to tie up his loose ends. Oh, so he's willing to sacrifice innocent people so he can feel better about his past? Brother, the call is coming from inside the pizzeria. You say you can't bear to live with your sins in the same breath you use to endanger more innocent souls. You are history repeating itself, letting your grief or some twisted notion of a greater good cloud your judgment again and again. Are you so enamored with fixing the past that you'd avert your eyes from a broken future? If your new sins pile up high enough, can you stand on them to tear down the tower of past wickedness that you've built? Will that give you the peace you so desperately crave? Sorry, don't know where that came from. From what we learn about Henry in Secret of the Mimic, it seems that he's been this way from the beginning, refusing to act, and when he finally does, it's too little, too late. I wonder how many, if any, people died before Mike finished the job. Anyway, my final takeaway from this lawsuit is that the pizzeria was active before Mike showed up, and that Henry sucks. A young girl was left impossibly and grossly traumatized due to the negligence of Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated. She witnessed the head of an animatronic fall off and roll across the ground. When asked if she was okay, she screamed. Staff asked the head not to ask any more questions. The trauma put the young girl in a coma for 10 weeks. When she awoke from her coma, she had been effectively lobotomized. She relies on her parents and health aides for all functions of life, except watching TV, hanging out with her girlfriends, and going to the mall. But for the superbly reckless and careless actions of Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated, she would not have suffered such an egregious and life-altering injury. The head asked the question. The head... Wait, what? The animatronic head, while not attached to its body, asked the child if she was okay? The AI is aware enough to respond to current situations? The head can function without the body? How? And who? Okay, let's back up and calm down. The first thing I think of when I read this is from FNAF's first interactive novel, The Week Before. In this chapter, Ralph notices Bonnie's head has fallen off. There is one thing out of the ordinary. Bonnie's head lies in one of the aisles between the party tables. It must have fallen off and rolled down there. It's a good thing that happened after hours, because nothing sets off customers more than a malfunctioning animatronic. A head detaching and bouncing off the stage would probably result in some kids needing therapy, and not to mention their parents. Apparently, in the world of Freddy's, watching a robot head fall off is one of the worst things a person can endure. Ralph, ever the dutiful employee, takes it upon himself to reattach the beloved mascot's head. If you choose to screw the head back on manually instead of with a screwdriver, you get this ending. You switch the small black and white television on your kitchen counter and twist the dial until you see a breaking news story. A sobbing child covered in cake and something that looks like blood is being interviewed, and the text scroll at the bottom reads, "Somebody's in trouble." It cuts to a video recording of an animatronic show at Freddy's. The footage shows Bonnie's head toppling off in the middle of a sick guitar riff, bouncing off the stage and landing on some poor kid's cake. Children scream and stampede while Bonnie's eyes roll wildly. You look away from the horrific scene. Seems like a similar situation to our lawsuit, minus the animatronic interacting with the child. Now, Bonnie's eyes rolling around after his head falls off could count as the AI responding to the current situation. The difference here is that, 1, we know for sure Bonnie is possessed, so him being able to surpass his programming isn't unusual. And 2, the eyes could just do that when a head becomes unattached. So this excerpt from The Week Before sets a precedent of animatronic heads' tendencies to fall off and the apparent mental anguish it causes, which lines up so far. What it doesn't tell us is why one of the FFPS animatronics would be aware enough to ask a kid if she was okay after falling off its own body. Or which animatronic could do that. Well, what are our options? Given The Week Before's Bonnie culprit, Rockstar Bonnie has a good case. But truly, any performing animatronic could be our offender. The only requirements are, has a head and advanced AI, or is possessed and able to surpass its unadvanced AI. Unfortunately, as far as we know, these requirements fit just about all of them. So we won't be able to guess which animatronic is the culprit here, which also means we won't know which animatronics have the advanced AI. However, if you'll join me on a pointless tangent, I was rewatching Markiplier's FFPS playthrough and realized the first lawsuit he gets is this very one. So let's assume for a second that you can know which animatronic it was based on what animatronics have been purchased for your pizzeria at the time. In Mark's case, it was Lefty, Ned Bear, and Mr. Hippo. Lefty's head falling off would probably cause extra trauma, given the awful tentacled baby trapped inside might have tried to escape. Maybe even enough trauma to put someone into a 10-week coma. So, if the lawsuits are related to the animatronics purchased, I'd pick Lefty as our offender. I could go on a bigger tangent about what it would mean if Lefty was indeed the culprit, but the proof is already basically non-existent, so I won't waste yours or my time. If you've gotten this lawsuit before, let me know if you had Lefty or not. If so, maybe I'll make another video about it. In the end, my takeaway is that all animatronics are equally likely to have advanced dynamically responsive AI and loose screws. General allegations. A young boy suffered extreme personal injury and emotional distress at an establishment owned by defendant Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated. He experienced a 2-day bout of food poisoning. He also felt grievous mental trauma at the sight of his friends having fun while he felt sick. His injuries are a direct result of Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated's grossly negligent preparation of food, including substandard hygiene practices. He would not have suffered such egregious personal injury but for Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated's blatant negligence. Considering the last kid with food poisoning ended up with a 10-month hospital stay, this kid got off pretty easy. This is the only lawsuit that begins with the general allegations piece here. That's what leads me to believe it's the first of the trio I discussed at the beginning of the video. It's been a while since then, so here's a reminder. However, I did notice something odd about the numbering of the lawsuit paragraphs/sentences. Most of them start at 1, but there are 2 that start at 6 and 11, respectively. They seem to be part of a set, so there should be another case that numbers 1 through 5 to complete it. There is one case that matches that requirement and has a unique introduction that none of the other cases have, making it a good candidate. So, as promised, let's overanalyze them together. To start the analysis, note the fact that this trio is a trio. The number 3 specifically doesn't appear much in FNAF. Usually it's the Vengeful Spirit or Cece or some other entity for 1, then, well, there's a lot of duos for 2. Then it's 4 for the MCI minus Golden Freddy, 5 for the whole crew, 6 including the puppet, and 7 including Cece. Things get debatable after that. Back to the topic of trios, the Paper Pals, and by extension Henry, William, and Edwin, come to mind as candidates, but I can't see how they'd relate to this kid's awful day at Freddy's. Mike, Elizabeth, and Cece are also notable. Perhaps each lawsuit relates to one of the kids? Let's review them and see. Quick aside, there are some other small characters or specific instances that could count for a trio, but nothing close to the importance of the meanings of the other number combos. Unless I'm forgetting a super important lore-solving trio. Hopefully not. He experienced a 2-day bout of food poisoning. He also felt grievous mental trauma at the sight of his friends having fun while he felt sick. He fell from a ride, stood up, and fell down again. The lack of responsiveness on the part of staff has caused him to become secluded in his home, afraid to go out in public again out of fear of being ignored. His head was bitten by an animatronic. First up, a young boy suffers from food poisoning and the mental anguish caused by his friends having fun without him. There's not much to take away from this one on its own. Next, we have a boy who falls and isn't noticed for some time, causing him to become a hermit. From this lawsuit, we deduce that there are probably multiple staff members working at FFPS. Lastly, we have the first lawsuit of this video, the bite of FFPS. A boy's head is bitten by an animatronic and he suffers injuries of debatable severity, notably related to his frontal lobe. We didn't learn much of anything from this lawsuit, just some speculations about hauntings, history, and animatronic tendencies. At first glance, the only thing linking these is that the child in all of these lawsuits is a boy. That's a point away from the Mike, Elizabeth, Cece connections, though not damning. If it is about the Afton trio, obviously the last lawsuit is for Cece with the bite. That leaves Mike and Elizabeth to split food poisoning / mental anguish from being left alone, and falling down / being ignored / being afraid to leave the house. I'm going to remove the food poisoning and falling down pieces from the equation because I doubt they relate to anything lore-wise. So we have being left alone and being ignored / being afraid to leave the house. Well, being left alone clearly suits Elizabeth, as that's what causes Baby to eat her, which leaves Mike with being ignored and or being afraid to leave his house. Honestly, I can see it working. Mike, along with everyone else, was probably ignored by William. He is a top contestant for Worst Father of the Year after all. And the nightmare / gas chamber experiment nonsense could very well have left Mike afraid to leave his room, let alone his house. Or, post-scoopage, it could describe him living in the shadows. So it may be a little weak, but these lawsuits could very well be meant to represent the Afton kids. As Molten Freddy says, one big happy family. It's a common theme throughout the game. Everyone together in one place. Loose ends tied up. Is it a stretch? Yes. Does it add anything to the lore? Not really, except maybe some insight into Mike's hermit tendencies and Afton's A+ parenting skills. Another angle is that the trio of lawsuits tell a story that mirrors Cece's experience. This would be an example of shatter God memory David victim, whatever theory that posits that Cece has influence over the world of Freddy's. A boy is left behind by his friends, ignored by adults, afraid to leave his home, and ends the week with a discount Claire's lobotomy. Is this a stretch? Yes. Does it add anything to the lore? No. But other than these two, I can't think of any reason why this trio would exist at all. What do you think? Please let me know if you can come up with any other justifications for this trio's existence. Otherwise, I'll consider this one sufficiently overanalyzed for now. And that's all of them. 10 lawsuits analyzed within an inch of their lives. Although we didn't solve anything today, I think there are some fun insights and potential supporting evidence for theories within these lawsuits. Let's do a quick summary of the lawsuits' main points and our takeaways. 1. The bite of FFPS. A child was bitten at the FFPS location. No solid conclusions, but some fun insights on animatronics and spooky shenanigans. 2. Hermit child. A child fell down and was ignored by staff. Multiple employees likely worked at FFPS. 3. 100 bones. A boy broke 40% of his bones but didn't notice till he got home. Uama's lawsuits can't be trusted. 4. Sinkhole. The ground gave way beneath the child. The sinkhole problems from the Pizzaplex were already happening during FFPS. 5. 10 months. A boy ate one bite of pizza and suffered for 10 months. The existence of a kitchen led us to discover the completionist ending's depiction is inaccurate. 6. Itsy Bitsy Spider. Poor kid. Poor spider. 7. What a waste. A boy threw away his pizza. Fazbear Entertainment fished it out of the trash. People didn't like that. 8. Henry sucks. Professor Petal goes on a rant about the ethics of two wrongs making a right. Also, FFPS was open before Mike got there. 9. Lobotomy. A minor mechanical malfunction ruins the lives of 800 people. All of the FFPS animatronics potentially have very advanced AI. 10. General allegation. A child suffered from unimaginable mental torment from a 2-day bout of food poisoning. Anyways. 11. Bonus trio analysis. General allegation, hermit child, and the bite of FFPS form an unusual trio. Both the Afton kids and Cece alone share potential connections. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Let me know if you liked this video and if you have any other ideas for me to analyze. As always, my name is Professor Petal, and this is FNAF-ology 101. Class dismissed.